Good morning everyone. This is class 12 subject chemistry chapter 5 lecture number 3. In this lecture I will be discussing the structures of oxides of nitrogen, and then I will discuss nitric acid, that is the oxo acid of nitrogen. After that I will discuss allotropes of phosphorus, and then compounds of phosphorus, that is phosphine. And in the end of this lecture I will be discussing the homework that I gave you in lecture number 2. Now next we will start with the structure of oxides of nitrogen. Now first we will learn that how to draw the Lewis dot structure. So there are 3 steps for writing the Lewis dot structure. For example, if we want to write down the Lewis dot structure for N2O. So the first step is calculate the total number of valence electron of the atoms present. For example, here we have 2 nitrogen and 1 oxygen. So first of all we will calculate the total number of valence electron present in both the atoms. So here in nitrogen we have 5 valence electron and in oxygen we have 6 electrons. So total number of electrons are 5 plus 5 10 plus 6 16. So first step is calculate the total number of valence electrons of the atoms present. Next step is select the central atom and then draw the skeletal structure. Now how we will select the central atom? Generally the central atom is that atom which is less electronegative. So here in nitrogen and oxygen is more electronegative. So nitrogen is the central atom in this structure. After that, third step is put one shared pair of electron between every 2 atoms to represent a single bond between them. So after drawing the skeletal structure, we will place one pair of electron between the 2 atoms to represent a single bond. And after that, use remaining pairs of electron either for the multiple bonding or to show them as a lone pair. And keeping in mind that octet of each atom is completed. Now first structure is structure of N2O, that is dinitrogen oxide. So first of all we will draw the structure for dinitrogen oxide. So first of all we will calculate the total number of valence electron present in nitrogen and oxygen. So here we have 2 nitrogen, so 5 plus 5, and in oxygen we have 6 valence electron. So total number of electrons are 16. 16 electrons means 8 pairs of electron. Now this is the skeletal of N2O, that is dinitrogen oxide. Now first of all we will place one pair of electron between these 2 atoms, and after that we will complete the octet of each atom. And when we draw the Lewis dot structure, this is the structure for dinitrogen oxide. Here the octet of nitrogen is complete, that is 2, 4, 6, 8 electron, and here in oxygen again 2 lone pairs and 2 bond pairs. So here also the octet of oxygen is complete, and in this case on nitrogen we have 2 lone pair of electron and 2 bond pair. This structure can also be represented in this form. Here we also have 1 lone pair on nitrogen, and there is triple bond between nitrogen and single bond between nitrogen and oxygen. So these two are the resonating structure of each other, and the structure of dinitrogen oxide is linear. Next is NO. Now in this case if we calculate the valence electron, total valence electron, so on nitrogen we have 5 and on oxygen we have 6. So we have total 11 electrons, means we have 5 pair of electron and 1 odd electron. So this is the Lewis dot structure of NO. In this structure the odd electron is present on nitrogen. Similarly the third oxide of nitrogen is N2O3. So in the similar manner we can calculate the total number of valence electron. After that we can calculate pairs of electron, and after that first of all we will put one pair of electron in between these atoms to represent single bond. After that we will complete the octet of each atom. So this is the structure for N2O3. Now next oxide is NO2. So again, if we calculate the total number of valence electrons, so it comes out to be 17. Again, this is the odd electron species and the odd electron is present on nitrogen. Next we have N2O4, that is a dimer form of NO2. So here we have 34 electrons, means 17 pairs. So this is the structure, Lewis dot structure of N2O4. Now next is N2O5. Now if we calculate the total valence electron in N2O5, it comes out to be 40. Means we have 20 pairs. So this is the skeleton of N2O5. First we will place one pair of electron between atoms to represent single bond. After that the remaining pairs can be used for the completion of octet. And here there is a nitrogen oxygen nitrogen bond in N2O5 and the octet of each atom is completed. So these are the structures of oxides of nitrogen. Next topic is nitric acid. So we have different oxo acids of nitrogen, that is H2N2O2, HNO2 nitrous acid, HNO3 nitric acid, and this HNO3 is the most important oxo acid of nitrogen. Now first of all we will discuss the preparation of nitrogen. First of all we will discuss the preparation of nitric acid, and after that we will discuss the properties of nitric acid. So first preparation is in laboratory. Nitric acid is prepared by heating sodium nitrate and concentrated H2SO4 in a glass retort. So by reacting sodium nitrate with H2SO4, here we are getting our nitric acid. So in laboratory the preparation method for nitric acid is that we will treat our sodium nitrate, or we can use potassium nitrate in presence of H2SO4, we will get our nitric acid. But on large scale nitric acid is prepared by Ostwald process. So in Ostwald process the first step is ammonia. It will react with oxygen in presence of platinum at 500 Kelvin temperature and 9 bar pressure. First of all it will form NO. That is, first of all nitrogen monoxide is formed. After that this nitrogen monoxide, it will combine with oxygen, and here we are getting NO2, that is nitrogen dioxide. Now after that in third step what will happen, this NO2 it will combine with H2O, and here we are getting our nitric acid. So in Ostwald process there are 3 steps for the formation of nitric acid. So these are the 2 methods by which we can prepare nitric acid. Now next is properties of nitric acid. So first property is it is a colorless liquid, and in gaseous state this HNO3 it exists as a planar molecule. Next is in aqueous solution it will lose its proton, that is when HNO3 reacts with water, being strong acid it will lose its proton, and this H2O it will accept this proton, and therefore it will form NO3 negative, that is nitrate ion, and H3O positive. Next is in aqueous solution this nitric acid behaves as strong acid, that is HNO3 it will lose proton, and therefore the water will accept its proton. Next property is concentrated HNO3 act as a strong oxidizing agent, and the product of oxidation depends on the concentration of the acid, temperature, and the nature of material undergoing oxidation. Now here we have copper. Now when we treat copper in presence of dilute HNO3, so copper nitrate will form, but nitrogen monoxide will release. But when we take copper with concentrated HNO3, so again the copper nitrate will form, but here nitrogen dioxide is forming. So depending upon the concentration, product will be different. Next, if we have zinc, and when we treat our zinc in dilute HNO3, so what will happen? It will form zinc nitrate, and in case of dilute HNO3, N2O will be released. But similarly, if we use concentrated HNO3 with zinc metal, so again zinc nitrate will form, but this time nitrogen dioxide will be formed. So depending upon the concentration of acid as well as on the material, the product will be different. So these are the reaction in which HNO3 act as an oxidizing agent. Here the oxidation number of copper is 0, and in this case the oxidation number of copper is +2. So it is undergoing oxidation, and here the oxidation number of nitrogen is +5, and in this case the oxidation number of nitrogen is +2. So in HNO3 to NO, reduction is taking place, so it will behave as a strong oxidizing agent. So chromium, aluminium do not dissolve in concentrated HNO3, and the reason is when we dissolve chromium and aluminium in concentrated HNO3, a layer of oxide will form at the surface, and because of this, chromium and aluminium do not dissolve in concentrated HNO3. Next property of nitric acid is that is concentrated nitric acid oxidizes non-metal and their compounds. For example, this I2 it oxidized to iodic acid, carbon is oxidized to carbon dioxide, and sulfur is oxidized to sulfuric acid, and whereas phosphorus is oxidized to phosphoric acid. So these are the reaction in which concentrated HNO3 oxidizes non-metals and their compounds. Now we have one more reaction or one more property, that is Brown ring test. So Brown ring test is used to check the presence of nitrate ion. So what we will do in Brown ring test, freshly prepared ferrous sulfate solution is added to an aqueous solution containing nitrate ion, and then carefully adding concentrated H2SO4 along the sides of the test tube. In a test tube, what we will do, we will take our aqueous solution containing nitrate ion, and then we add freshly prepared ferrous sulfate, and after that in that test tube we will add concentrated H2SO4 along the sides of the test tube. Now the observation is a brown ring at the interface is formed, that is a brown ring will form between the solution and the sulfuric acid layers, indicates the presence of nitrate ion. So to detect the nitrate ion in the solution, we will perform Brown ring test, and the reaction is these nitrate ion, they will react with Fe+2, and here we are getting nitrogen monoxide. Now what will happen when we add ferrous sulfate solution? So this FeH2O6 twice 2 positive, this complex, it will react with NO, and here we are getting brown complex. So this is the Brown ring test. So these are the properties of nitric acid. Next we will start with our phosphorus and the allotropic forms of phosphorus. So next we will start with phosphorus. The atomic number of phosphorus is 15, and 3 allotropic forms exist for phosphorus: white, red and black. So one by one we will discuss all these 3 allotropic forms of phosphorus. So first we have white phosphorus. The formula is P4, that is phosphorus exists in the form of P4. The properties of white phosphorus are, it is translucent white waxy solid, that is this white phosphorus is white waxy solid, and this white phosphorus is poisonous and insoluble in water. Next property is, it is insoluble in water but dissolves in boiling sodium hydroxide solution, that is P4 when dissolves in sodium hydroxide, it gives phosphine. The formula is PH3, and here NaH2PO2 is formed, that is sodium hypophosphite. So when we treat white phosphorus with sodium hydroxide, so here we are getting phosphine and sodium hypophosphite. Next is, white phosphorus is less stable and therefore more reactive than the other solid phases under normal condition because of angular strain in the P4 molecule, where the angles are 60 degree. Now in case of white phosphorus, the angle is 60 degree, and because of presence of angular strain, this white phosphorus is more reactive. And in P4 white phosphorus, the phosphorus is sp3 hybridized. Next is, this white phosphorus catches fire in air, that is P4 when react with oxygen, P4O10, that is the oxide of phosphorus, forms, and dense white fumes are formed when it reacts with air. Next is the structure of phosphorus is discrete tetrahedral unit, and the angle is 60 degree, and because of this angular strain, this white phosphorus is more reactive. Now next is we have red phosphorus. Now when we heat white phosphorus at 573 Kelvin in inert atmosphere, red phosphorus is obtained. Now this red phosphorus, it has iron grey luster, and this red phosphorus is odorless, non-poisonous and insoluble in water as well as in carbon disulfide. And the red phosphorus is less reactive than white phosphorus. And one more property is this red phosphorus, it does not glows in dark, whereas this white phosphorus, it glows in dark. Next is structure of red phosphorus. The structure of red phosphorus is, it is polymeric, consisting of P4 tetrahedral linked together via covalent bonds. That is, the structure of red phosphorus is polymeric structure, and the one P4 unit is joined to another P4 unit via covalent bond. Next allotrope of phosphorus is black phosphorus. Now this black phosphorus, it exists in two forms, alpha black and beta black. Now alpha black is formed when red phosphorus is heated in a sealed tube at 803 Kelvin. So when we heat red phosphorus in sealed tube at 803 Kelvin, then we get alpha black phosphorus. And beta black is obtained when white phosphorus is heated at 473 Kelvin under high pressure. So these are the preparation of alpha black phosphorus and beta black phosphorus. Now the structure of this alpha black is rhombohedral, that is the structure of alpha black phosphorus is rhombohedral crystal, and the structure of this beta black is orthorhombic. So these are the three forms, so allotropic forms of phosphorus: white phosphorus, red phosphorus, black phosphorus. White phosphorus is more reactive and red phosphorus is less reactive as compared to white phosphorus, and the structure of red phosphorus is that P4 units are linked to one another via covalent bond, that is, the structure of red phosphorus is polymeric structure. And in case of black phosphorus, we have two forms, alpha black and beta black. Now next we will discuss the compounds of phosphorus, that is phosphine. The formula is PH3. Now first reaction is the preparation of phosphine when we react calcium phosphide with water. So here we are getting calcium hydroxide and we are getting phosphine. So this is the first preparation of phosphine. In laboratory, this phosphine is made by reacting P4 in presence of NaOH. What will happen? PH3 will form and sodium hypophosphite will form. Now when this PH3 is pure, it is inflammable, but becomes inflammable due to the presence of P4 vapors. So during this preparation, if any amount of P4 is present in phosphine, so what will happen? It will become inflammable. So to purify the impurities of P4, first of all, this PH3, it is absorbed in HI solution and it will form a complex PH4I. Now after that, when we treat this PH4I in presence of KOH, here we are getting our pure phosphine. So this is the method by which we can prepare our phosphine. Now next is properties of phosphine. So first property is it is colorless gas with rotten fish-like smell and it is highly poisonous. The phosphine is a colorless gas and this gas is highly poisonous. The solubility of this gas is very less in water, that is, it is slightly soluble in water. Now the solution of PH3 decomposes in the presence of light, giving red phosphorus and hydrogen. Also, when absorbed in copper sulfate or mercury chloride solution, the corresponding phosphides are obtained. For example, if we treat this phosphine with copper sulfate, so what will happen? The phosphide will form, this is the phosphide of copper, and here we are getting H2SO4. Similarly, we can do the reaction with mercuric chloride solution. And phosphine is weakly basic like ammonia, and therefore it reacts with acid. So here we have phosphine and here we have HBr, it is acid, so it will react with acid, and here the product is PH4Br. So being weakly basic, this phosphine reacts with acid. So these are the properties of phosphine. Now next is, what are uses of phosphines? So phosphine is used as a Holm signals. So what we will do, in a container we take calcium carbide and calcium phosphide, and these are taken in a container and then thrown in the sea. So what will happen, they will react with water to produce PH3 and ethane gas, which burn, and thus they guide the ships in the sea. So this PH3 is used as a Holm signals, or you can say it is used in guiding the ships in the sea. So after doing this, you can solve NCERT exercise question number 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 and 14. Now I will be discussing the homework that I gave you in lecture number 2. First question is, why does NH3 form hydrogen bond but PH3 does not? And the answer for this question is, for the formation of hydrogen bond, two conditions are required. First is, hydrogen combines with small size element, and the element must be highly electronegative, either nitrogen, oxygen or fluorine. So in case of NH3, nitrogen, it is smaller in size and it is highly electronegative in group 15. That is why it forms hydrogen bond, whereas in case of PH3, the size of phosphorus is larger and the electronegativity is also less. Therefore, it does not form hydrogen bond. Next question is, how is nitrogen prepared in the laboratory? And the answer is, when we treat ammonium chloride in presence of sodium nitrite. So by the reaction of ammonium chloride with sodium nitrite, here we are getting our N2 gas. Next question is, how is ammonia manufactured industrially? And the answer for this question is that by Haber process, ammonia is manufactured industrially. And the reaction is, N2 reacts with H2 and ammonia will form. And this reaction favors at high pressure and at 700 Kelvin, and also in the presence of iron oxide as a catalyst with the small amount of Al2O3. Next question is, explain why ammonia is more basic than BiH3, or explain why ammonia is more basic and BiH3 is feebly basic. So the answer of this question is explained on the structure of ammonia and BiH3. So this is the structure of NH3 and here we have structure of BiH3. Now when we move from nitrogen to bismuth, the size of the central atom increases. Therefore, the lone pair occupies larger volume in case of bismuth. In other words, we can see that the electron density on this central atom decreases when the size of the central atom increases. That is, in case of Bi, that is in case of bismuth, this electron density spreads over larger volume. Therefore, it is not easily available for donation. That is why ammonia is strong base, or ammonia is more basic than BiH3, because nitrogen is smaller in size. Therefore, the electron density is available for donation. And from here we can see that ammonia is more basic than BiH3. So these are the questions I gave you in lecture number 2. Thank you. Have a nice day.